Would you like it?
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
And we find ourselves once more amid the towering stacks of your library, where I've spent the last 20 weeks foraging for food and becoming familiar with the local wildlife, building myself various structures and a visitor center.
Yes, and I brought you your library card.
And yes, exactly. I have done nothing except prepare for my library card.
Here you go.
Part.
It's, as you can see, it has your photo on it.
Yeah.
It has your name on it.
I'm asleep in this photo, though.
Well, no,
it looks like an infrared picture of... Are you watching?
I'm not watching you.
Oh, well, that's good enough for me. Okay,
so if you hold it up to the light,
yes.
You can see that there's like this silver filigree kind of woven into the card.
Oh, that's very pretty.
Yeah, think of it as like the RFID antenna in your bank card, except it doesn't work on electronics. But don't worry about that. So this should give you access to new areas of the library, including the cafeteria.
Ooh.
And don't get it damaged. Like if any of those silver filigree lines break,
put it down and walk away.
No, keep it on you. But just like make sure you're not in any of the new areas when that happens.
Okay, excellent. Well, being unattended for 2 weeks at a time in an alien like book-rich environment with aliens.
No
to me.
aliens. Well, not many.
There are certain risks that I'm learning are just part of my life now that I'm here in your library. Mm-hmm. I kind of forget what life is like on the outside. What it was like to see regular colors instead of UV colors. What regular animals were like instead of the bookworms and the velociraptors. What it was like to have friends who didn't sort of nod and grin knowingly every time that I tried to open up to them. And make a little mark on their clipboard.
I'm glad to hear that things are progressing fine.
Yeah, and that's another 3 marks you're making on that clipboard. Okay, well, cool.
What's really going to bug you later is that I didn't have that clipboard with me when I came in.
I'm actually really pleased, like having my own library card, because it says library card, and then a picture
of you,
of me asleep, and nothing else.
Yep, and it says Khaki, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. So, like, if anything happens, like, will people be able to identify me correctly? I've grown increasingly more concerned.
Are your dental records on file? If I were to call your dentist, would they be able to provide?
How does that? Oh, dentists keep them.
Yes.
Do they?
They keep your x-rays and stuff like that, you know.
So when they talk about looking up a dental database, they're really just calling someone's dentist.
Yeah. They're just figuring out who's this guy's dentist, and that's why they're fairly easy to falsify.
So you told me about some of these new areas. Now, over the weeks that I've been here, I'm kind of a conservative explorer, right? I don't travel very far very quickly. I've been like unspooling the fire hose as a means of finding my way back.
That's only going to get you about 20 meters, isn't it?
Well, those first few weeks were pretty precarious and scary. I've also taken to turning some of the books upside down in their shelves so I'd be able to recognize them, still maintaining the same position because I have a lot of respect for the Dewey Imperial system that everything's organized by.
Well, remember, in the section of all the mystery novels, all the books are turned with the spines towards the back of the cabinet anyway.
I noticed that. It made them very hard to find, but that was part of the fun.
Well, that's the thing.
What can you tell me about the cafeteria?
Sometimes I man the cafeteria myself. It's really what I call the kitchen, but it's much nicer to call it the cafeteria than just the kitchen.
So if I see you there wearing an obvious moustache and a hat, I'll just wink.
It'll be like Archer and Bob's Burgers.
Yes. All right. What do we have in store for our readers today?
Right. Today's book is by James P. Hogan. It's called Inherit the Stars.
This one's actually pretty easy to describe. We have two white-suited astronauts.
Yes.
And an orange-suited astronaut corpse.
Yes, absolutely.
The white-suited astronaut. And behind them is the usual sea of stars and
the dunes of some small planetoid, judging by the lack of horizon.
Asteroid pocked. The other one has a space shovel. And at first I thought that there was maybe 2 orange-suited astronauts, but no, it's just that it's half buried in the in the regal.
Kind of like green boots on the Mount Everest, but this is orange suit on the astronaut.
Green boots on the Mount Everest?
Oh, you never heard that one?
No.
So there's lots of corpses on Mount Everest, but a lot of times they just can't be moved because they're frozen solid in place.
Oh wow!
And they're basically used as landmarks. And one of the more famous ones was called Green Boots, named because of the very flashy green boots that he was wearing. It's like it's believed to be an Indian mountain climber.
Wait, they haven't been identified?
Well, I think not a lot of people go there to like check up on this thing, and it can take up to 6 or 8 people to get one corpse down from the mountain.
Oh yeah,
so it's horrendously dangerous to do so. So yeah, it's
or one Brian Blessed.
Well, has he been up there?
He came very close, and then his climbing partner fell ill or whatever, and then he carried his climbing partner down all the way from, and they were like very close to the top because he's Superman.
Wow.
Have you ever seen him in interviews, by the way? I'm sorry, I said the word Brian Blessed, and now it's all I can think about.
Brian Blessed.
Yes, it's so celebratory when he announces himself, like, I'm Brian Blessed.
And it comes out of that beard, and it's like...
It's so much fun.
Which I also think is quite amusing, is that you could see the colored bands, in this case golden bands on the white-suited guys, harking to the Apollo missions, where they had red bands on the suits.
Oh.
However, they only had them on one suit. The commander had red bands on the suit, and the pilot didn't, because after the mission with Aldrin and Armstrong, they discovered that it was very difficult to tell them apart in photos. Both these guys have gold bands on their suit. Is missing the point.
That's kind of what the story is about a little bit. I mean, they are astronauts from the Commonwealth of Milk and Honey. So the idea of uniformity is a pretty important cultural touchstone for this space civilization.
Even though we're on an archaeological dig here.
Well, yeah. I mean, the spacesuit of the CMH, the Commonwealth of Milk and Honey astronauts are much more advanced.
Yes,
they're recovering. I've got another note. Let's see if this one sticks. They're recovering this old desiccated astronaut corpse with a far inferior spacesuit, because these are members of Space ZAKA. This is the organization that in Israel provides disaster victim identification. They're made up of Orthodox Jews, but they also have Muslim and Druze teams and Christian teams that operate on the Sabbath.
So yes, you can see the shock in the astronaut on the right. It's in its posture, because the spacesuit of this person that they're digging out from this rock is wearing one of the forbidden colors.
The orange is really quite shocking.
It's something they've never seen in their lifetimes.
No. Milk and Honey, everything is white and gold in their environment. Oh, we should mention, by the way, the back cover blurb of this book was in a world where poor fashion choices mean death, one man dares to wear orange.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is his story. That was this book was, by the way, recommended to us by our friend Chris.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
It was the Milk and Honey cartel that's got some very strict rules on things that are taboo in couture. Orange being one of them.
It's a vulgar color.
Thou shalt not orange. It's the prime commandment of the prime directive of couture.
Now, that's not a message that our countrymen have really received, because orange is a very celebratory color in the Netherlands.
Well, I know that, but that's this book is I don't think Mr. Hogan is Dutch.
No, he's probably Hulk Hogan's uncle.
Ooh. So yes, our two astronauts. One of the two guys is Robbie Stardust, heir to the Borealis couture empire.
Ooh, and is that the one? That's the one that's signified by the white and gold trim.
Yes, that's their thing. He's basically doing his internship.
Some people they go to a kibbutz for a year. He's on mission, some would call
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely, it's the archaeological dig at Tau Alpha Ceti, where
that's a real star.
And it's Tau Ceti Alpha, but I'm pretty sure that Mr. Hogan just grabbed something that sounded cool and just made it up on the spot.
I don't think it's stupid at all. I think the Tau Alpha Ceti is a very cool name for a star, but that's the system, right? It's not the planetoid.
It's kind of left in the middle. It's
is it? Yeah, it's strange how when I point out obvious logical flaws, it always turns out to be ambiguous in the book.
Well, yes.
We should really start reviewing authors that are willing to commit more and to dig their own graves the way that we do.
Well, yes. I think the Tau Ceti refers to the system, and the Alpha is the prime planet.
That's correct,
in there.
because this is the French name structure.
Absolutely, yes. Where they change the order around. It's like they have that whole thing where,
in their view, they correct the order.
Well, yes, unless it's one of the 18 words that are the order is the other way around. It's like the
adjectives.
Yes.
Bas, haut,
bon, mauvais,
mince,
beau, grand, chaud, grand, vite, gros.
Wait, what are you doing now?
I'm trying to remember the line.
Vite. That's fast. Vite,
yeah,
vite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is French. No, I was like... So there's a bunch. They had that drilled into me in my first year at French in high school. For some reason, I've still got that little drill of words
really
memorized
useful.
in my head.
I mean,
except I don't speak any other French.
De rien. Like English has 128 irregular verbs, and then French just has 18 irregular adjectives. That's fine, and some irregular verbs as well.
At least it's one of those things where there's a clear rule for it. It's like it's always in this order, unless it's one of these words, then it's the other way around. Simple as that. Once you have that memorized.
Yeah, good luck making rules like that for English. E after an I, except after C, or what?
It works. It works because there's plenty of examples where it's not correct. But any time you doubt it, then the rule works. That's the thing. When the word is pronounced in a way that it doesn't give you clarity whether or not it's a IE or EI, then the rule works. In all the examples that you can give where the rule is not correct, there is no doubt about how to spell it, because when you pronounce the word, it's immediately clear that it's not
right. So I was going to give this as an example of English weirdness pronunciation, but it's actually not fair. I was looking at family names that are pronounced differently than you would expect.
Yeah, but names are always but anyway.
Well, then you also get this is actually a Scots surname, Menzies, like Menzies. You'd think, right? Yeah. Except that was the romanization of a name that was written with letters that no longer exist in the English alphabet, in the Latin alphabet. So English had a lot more letters when the Gutenberg press arrived in the German made.
Thorn being the
Thorn and the eth. And also this one, it was the yoch, and it was substituted with a z. So you have this name Menzies, which is actually Mingus.
Okay.
Mingus is how it's pronounced. And so there's a limerick that sort of plays on that. There was a young lassie named Menzies that asked her aunt what that Stenzies. Said the aunt with a gasp, "My dear, it's a wasp, and you're holding the end where the Stenzies."
Okay.
Where the sting is.
Stenzies.
He asked what that thing is, and you're holding the end where the sting is.
Yes. Okay.
Well, okay.
No,
so
I'm sorry. I like
by that.
Sorry.
That was my one use of one of my favorite limericks.
No,
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
that means we can. It's fine.
Right. Back to the
so we've got
back
Robbie
to
Stardust.
Tau Alpha Ceti. Yes. So Robbie goes back, takes the corpse with the foot. Well, actually, if you notice the guy's spade, he's not digging the sand away from the corpse. He's trying to cover it back up.
Ah, yes, it's
the forbidden color.
It's the forbidden color.
It's like even seeing it is like even seeing it.
Yeah,
is
and
like
the other
taboo.
one is Innocenta Armstrong.
Yes,
his partner in crime, the senior remains identifier that's trading.
Oh yes.
But yeah, he's clearly a lot more curious about this radical.
Oh yeah,
color.
he's she is trying to dig it up and trying to cover it back up and oh no, it's like this goes way beyond what we are beyond our mandate. Yeah, this is and he's of course
well, it is an archaeological dig.
It is.
It's a kind of a paradoxical thing that at an archaeological dig, space ZAKA is being invited. After something,
it is a good question. At what point does it stop? Where's the difference between grave robbery and archaeology?
Well, I'm sure that there's arguments made for the appropriate inhumation of prehistoric and historic remains, like the pharaohs. Why should their bones be on display? Actually, don't we have a friend who? Let me see. He was studying long bones of archaeological remains throughout the world.
Vikings, specifically, if I seem to recall,
scanning the long bones to reverse engineer what their profession would have been based on calcification and breakages. I remember asking him aren't these remains precious? Because in order to perform his analyses, it also involves sawing them up and getting cross section of them. And he's like, yeah, well, a lot of museums are just like they're drowning in these bones and they destroy them.
Drawers and
from
drawers
time
full.
to time.
Yeah, I mean,
so he could come in. Like, do you have any leftovers
that I can use? Yeah, it's clear why Robbie is interested in this, because he's in the middle of the Succession War with the Borealis Couture company. Like, he sees this thing and it's shocking, and he's like, "Wow, maybe I can use this. Maybe this is
providing him with inspiration because he wants to distinguish himself from his sister Abigail."
Yeah.
Who is first in line for
if he can upstage her, then maybe he can get his foot in and become the next ruler of the Borealis Couture Company.
Have a title? Styles himself as
the president. He tries to convince Inokenta.
No, Inokenta. Yeah, it's the feminine form of Inokenti. It's a Russian name.
Oh, okay.
Like Yevgeny, Yevgenia. They come from all over the place because they've had the the early space diasporas. I thought that it was kind of a cool concept that as humanity went into space, the vanguard was not the established nations, but rather the peoples who, throughout their history, had been displaced. The African populations that were displaced as part of the African slave trade, or the Chinese and the South Indians in the coolie trade.
Space exploration has the advantage that you can give everybody their own planet and good luck, colonize it, and make the best of it. And you get these and maybe this explains what you get with the monocultural planets that you see in so many space fantasies.
Oh yeah, the planet of nice hats.
Yes,
we all wear the nice hats.
Yes, the planet of the hunky people who run everywhere.
Oh, that was a great planet. Jogging, the death sentence.
That's the one. Yeah, the planet
sexy
of the
nipple out.
Planet of the milk-fed boys
and girls, and they love their jogging and they love their premarital sex. Let's all have some premarital sex. Hooray!
Kenta tries to stop him, but he managed to snap a few shots with his camera, so that at least
the damage is already done.
Some sort of evidence of this new color to him. I mean, he's never seen it before, and he starts experimenting with it. And he has to dodge the fashion police, of course.
By this time, a rather small and underfunded organization, because none of these crimes are common at all.
No, and especially someone like Robbie, who has he's up in the upper echelons of a fashion company. It's like, who would ever think of violating those codes, those fundamental taboos and
or let alone culture. That he would have the contacts to acquire dyes beyond the bleach and gold that are the standards for the empire where he lives.
Absolutely.
The livery that is literally everyone's coloration.
And it sends him into the bowels of the space settlement, trying to...
I really liked that. What was the settlement called again?
It was the Tau Alpha Ceti one.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Because there were several cities on Tau Alpha Ceti in the, what did we call it? The Commonwealth of Milk and Honey?
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one. Ruled over by his...
No, it was his mother, Jessica Nova.
Oh, yeah, it's one of those... Yeah, she named her children, changed their surnames as well? Or
it's one of those male-female lines things, where they don't have the same surname.
Yes. They use the Spanish naming convention, which
absolutely,
honestly, I think is so much better. Jessica Nova is I'm sure that Robbie was disappointed that he couldn't inherit that name.
I will accuse Mr. Hogan of dipping into fantasy space name territory here.
No, I think they're both very cool.
That's the whole point, isn't it?
Well, especially, Nova just means new, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have Jessica Nova and her daughter and heir Abigail Nova. Mm-hmm. And we have the upstart Robbie Stardust, who has discovered this
new
orange.
Color. Well, not new color.
No, it's an ancient color.
It's an ancient color, but it's never seen before. Nobody's seen it.
Do you know where it came from?
Orange.
Yeah, the
spacesuit.
Yeah, but you know whose spacesuit that was?
Well, are we going to tell our readers?
Yes, I am.
Go on then.
That was Edward Nkoloso. He was the leader of the Zambian space program. Now, this was a real thing. It's considered by us a little bit of a joke. So I rather liked when I saw it in the book. So in the real Zambian space program was founded by a grade school teacher. That's Edward Nkoloso, and he trained 12 men and 1 girl and 6 cats, and they were going to beat the USSR and America not just to the moon, but to Mars.
Okay.
He was going to build an 88-ton drum was going to be the foundation of their rocket that was made out of copper because Zambia is rich in copper and was going to take them to Mars. And like several men and one girl and several cats for some reason.
Did they ever launch? Anything?
No. They did a lot of training. Yeah. So they did their 0G training by being spun around on tire swings and then having the swing cut as they reached apex.
Wow! You get 3.5 seconds of free fall.
The average vomit comet doesn't do that much better, right?
30 to 40 seconds.
So it's an order of magnitude.
Whatever.
Alternatively, the astronauts could be put in oil drums and rolled down a hill as a way of simulating like the stress of
re-entry.
Liftoff.
Yes.
Poor Edward, he found it quite hard to keep them focusing on the space stuff because there are very few quotes, but one of them, there was far too much lovemaking and it was very hard to keep them focused on the space things.
If you put like handsome youngsters together, and
they had to be fit and they had to be strong and
that's why they go through many condoms at the Olympics. There's like athletes in their prime, like fit young men and women who are at it
because they've been training like nonstop, and then they do their contest.
Yep, and they're done.
It. And now they have to live in this village with the world's fittest, horniest people.
Absolutely.
I had a colleague, and her nephew was in charge of condom logistics for the 2012 London Olympics. Yeah, it came down to 12,000 for the first week, and then another 20,000 on standby because
just in case.
And apparently, the archers and the marksmen were the worst because they went first, and so they were.
Those people tend to be somewhat older,
more stamina, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, I'm saying it's not like the gymnasts who are
super fit,
especially the women are barely out of their teens in most cases. Especially archers and other shooting disciplines, they tend to be much older usually than
because those are disciplines that. Yeah, that improve with age.
Yeah, absolutely. They're peak youth and fitness isn't.
Yeah, it doesn't age stability.
It's not the prime thing. I mean, you have to be healthy and fit. But 2012 again, I think the women's skeet, the lady who took that was well into her 40s or even in her 50s. It's
good on her.
Lots of experience and just dead eye shot. Okay, great.
Because you have to just sort of go for it. Much like Edward Nkoloso just went for it. He decided that his brand new nation, Zambia, deserved its own space program.
And he ended up on Tau Alpha Ceti.
In the real world, he didn't, because the whole program was shut down before it received the 7 million Zambian pounds that they'd requested from the government and the 1.5 billion dollars that they'd requested from the United Nations. Yes, exactly. But before either of those rejections could come in, the whole thing was cancelled because the space girl became pregnant and her parents came and got her, and then the cats ran away, and then what was the point anymore? I love that there was even I've seen one interview with him by a BBC dude who kind of mocked them because they were called these local crackpots. And Edwin Nkoloso, he walks around with this old army surplus helmet and a cape so that everyone can see that he's in charge of the Zambian space program. But apparently, in this world, for Inherit the Stars by James B. Hogan,
he got there.
He got his funding and he made it into space. Now I can't sex the astronaut in question, whether it's. Maybe this might be Matha, the original space girl.
Yeah, well, the book doesn't touch on it either. It's just the body gets buried again under.
Because there's an artefact.
Yeah, no, totally. But and because it's wearing forbidden orange, you can't come back with that. There would be a riot. It's
it's a very puritanical.
The fashion police would be right on top of them
because supposedly orange is tacky.
Orange isn't even mentioned. He has to come up with his own name for. He calls it. In the book, he calls it Aeon Halcyon, because he doesn't have a name for orange. He doesn't know it.
At this point, I really sympathise with Robbie Stardust, and I admire his imagination because, as I mentioned last week or the week before, I've been developing the ability to see in the ultraviolet spectrum as a consequence of the curious diet that I've been fed before the opening of the cafeteria, thanks to my library card, and I had to do some significant research to find names for these colors, but the boldness of just naming it something. It's certainly a cool word, like Aeon Halcyon. is a cool name.
It is. It's like, well, he does work for one of the major fashion companies in the universe. It's like, it's kind of his thing.
It's maybe less inspired and more commercial, so that he can trademark it.
Like the rival corporations are like going at it. It's a cutthroat business, especially with Borealis Couture being in the throes of the succession war between him and Abigail. It's what he thinks that will launch him into the best position to be able to take out the company from under his sister.
Little does he know just how profoundly these efforts will, not exactly backfire, but escalate, because he is indirectly responsible for the Pantone putsch. It's not just Borealis Couture where this dissatisfaction with monochromatic life is brewing. Like, everywhere else, they are desperate for new colors, for new identities, for ways to distinguish themselves from other people that have not been available to them since the
fashion wars.
Yes, which resulted in the destruction of Earth. Let's just get that out there.
That was directly caused by the design diabolique. The design that should not have been. It meant the end of life on Earth.
I was confused by it. What it was supposed to look like. It was almost this Lovecraftian.
Yes.
Like, apparently that there is a shape or a pattern or a set of colors or whatever that
maybe it involved orange. It's kind of like the world's funniest joke, by Monty Python.
Oh yes, this heavily militarized joke.
Absolutely, and that's what happened with this fashion. That can't be
told without anyone.
And that's what happened with this fashion design.
The dessin diabolique, as it's known in French.
Yes, the dessin diabolique. Well, he goes back to the records regarding the destruction of Earth,
which he had access to as an archaeology student.
He combines it with the family records of the corporation, and he starts working on. Well, I won't say that he's like trying to copy the dessin diabolique, but he's definitely working with some of the ideas that are involved.
It's such a tricky thing because the Lovecraftian reference earlier, like, how do you describe something that the mere seeing or thinking of it causes madness?
That's a classic problem when it comes to summoning the eldritch gods. Writing things down when you're going mad is quite difficult. And
I guess that's why those like Cthulhu prayers look so
scrolled.
Demented.
Yes,
demented.
Absolutely.
Cthulhu Ftagan.
Miss Armstrong starts worrying about Robbie. She notices that he's getting withdrawn, and he's not focusing on his ZAKA duties anymore. He's kind of neglecting his duties there, withdrawing more and more, working on this design. He has to find a way to produce this color, and it's
he makes some rather unsavory underworld contacts, such as Jack Bonhomme.
Right, yes, he's the guy who provides him with... his first experiments are quite interesting. He uses bleach to dye some black clothes and bleach them out, and it turns into this orange... Of course, true black doesn't exist. It's more like, in this case, it turned out to be a more darker brown, and when uncovering it with bleach, it becomes more of an orange color.
Well, the asshole inventor of Vanta Black would think otherwise. That's the one, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well no. The inventor of Vanta Black is not the asshole one. The asshole one was the artist who bought the sole rights to be able to use it.
Ah, that's right.
Yes, the inventor was just like someone who went it's really cool. We have these little nanoparticle things that just absorb almost all light.
Wasn't there someone who invented a
particular color of pink and licensed it to for everybody to use except
for this one
particular
dickhead
artist? Yes,
good. That's so beautiful.
Absolutely, and then he managed to get some of the stuff by buying it through a proxy, and there was so much drama about this. It was ridiculous.
If we think that the fashion wars are a ridiculous premise in this book by James P. Hogan, like the very fact that that happened in our world and in the last decade, should say otherwise.
Some people take clothing way too serious, and
not just clothing, but like dyes and colors are very like. Yeah. The Romans, they wore purple as a royal color because it was expensive.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of other identities are built on do you know why jeans are called jeans?
No, I do not.
Because it was the bleu-de-gênes, the indigo dye for the cotton process that became jeans.
Okay.
Was from Genoa, which is gêne in French, until the French copied it in Nîmes, where it was the bleu-de-nimes, denim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've actually recently watched a chemist reproduce the process. It's very it's very fascinating to watch how it's
making indigo dye for jeans.
Yes,
because how do you make a substance that you can soak something in, but that doesn't come off when you soak it in water?
The problem, that's the thing. It's like the indigo dye in its regular state is insoluble in water. So what they do, they perform a chemical reduction on it into a slightly different state. Then they soak the cloth in that dye, and then they take it out again. And when it reacts with oxygen, it reverts back into the other state. But by then it's already soaked into the fibers, and it reverts into the insoluble state while it's in the fibers under influence of the oxygen. So it's like it's more of a yellowish color, and you can see it as soon as you pulls it out of the liquid and wrings it out. You can immediately see it starting to go blue as it reacts with the oxygen in the air
cool.
too. It does. It's very. It's very
Learn
fascinating.
Something new every day.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that kind of information was on the forbidden index of the Commonwealth of Milk and Honey. That was one of the things that the fashion police were policing more than anything else.
Absolutely.
Just this forbidden knowledge.
Yes. And it turns, of course, into the final showdown with Miss Armstrong and Robbie, as it turns out that the space ZAKA is merely the front for the underground fashion police. It's like it's the organization that they use to get everywhere in space, and like every ZAKA member is actually a secret fashion police agent as well.
And it's definitely a part of their protocol that if they ever encounter this, they have to cover it up. They have to bury it or destroy it.
Which is actually literally depicted on the front cover of the book.
Is doing
literally covering it up, shoveling the sand back on. And
except for Robbie, who is too green and also too socially senior for her to...
Yes. He's grown up in fashion. He's like, this is new, this is interesting, this is going to propel him into the career, it's going to make him win the succession war over his sister.
But this confrontation is overtaken by... Because we pointed out previously, like, his idea was that he was going to distinguish himself by presenting orange and by flirting with the dessin diabolique.
Yes. Breaking the taboo.
But he has no idea just how powerful a wellspring of resistance and desire for identity he's unleashed. Like the Pantone push is in full swing.
Absolutely, they're coming down on him like a ton of bricks, or in this case, a small asteroid. What he doesn't know at this point is that they've set this asteroid on a collision course with the Alpha Ceti settlement. This is their ace in the hole, their design card. If we can't stop this, we are going to wipe out the entire settlement because we cannot allow this to
this knowledge to escape.
They know they can like push it out of the way until like right at the last moment, but it's
it's essentially to scuttle an entire planet,
and they're willing to do it. If this gets out there, then it's boom. Oh, terrible accident. No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, these things happen.
Little do they know, however. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, go on then. Don't put it on me. Little do they know what, Khaki.
No, I've actually got that. Because we mentioned Jacques Bonhomme, and Jacques Bonhomme was a popular uprising where the Jacques, the common folk, were rising up, and the leader was pejoratively called Jacques Bonhomme, Jack Good Guy, essentially.
The everyman.
Yeah. This insult, you take it a badge of honor.
Yes.
So this person has taken on this identity and rallied his other rainbow revolutionaries around him. Oh, why didn't I write that down? That would have been so much better than Pantone Putsch. The rainbow revolutionaries, and they've been secretly at work.
They know about orange.
They know about orange.
Right there in the middle.
Roy G. Biv. No, it's not. It's red, orange, yellow, green. This reminded me of, we did a book about the Fire of the Gods. God's Fire. God's Fire, that's what it was called.
Yes, episode
by Cynthia Felice, where an outnumbered revolutionary insurgency force knows that their dominating establishment has a contingency superweapon that they will use to utterly obliterate them.
And
they count on it being used because these people of the rainbow revolutionaries have been essentially dyeing the interior of this planet this planetoid, so that when it crashed into the planet, it just explodes
and they've got the media coverage beaming it live to the universe.
Visible somehow with FTL telescopes from across the galaxy, like in Star Wars,
like
The Force Awakens. That scene that you really like, where everyone across the galaxy can see this super weapon streaking across the galaxy, and it makes complete sense because it's called a hyperlight weapon. Okay, they say it's a hyperlight weapon, and so that makes it all okay. So in this case, what they see is
I will never forgive Mr. Abrams for that, nor for putting the Klingon homeworld and Earth within transporter distance of each other.
It was a super transporter. It It was an incredible, 24th century
Which
super
worked
transporter.
once and was never ever used again.
In this timeline, because it was classified. So yes, this completely internally consistent world produced by JJ Abrams, and apparently there will not be any more Star Trek films.
Oh, for
Beyond was great. Do you know what it reminded me when this final scene where. And we don't see that very often in a book where fucking everyone dies. All of our main characters, none of them survive.
I thought we were talking about Rogue One. Go on. Keep going.
That was Gareth Edwards. There's a movie that I appreciated more and more the more I watched it. So we have this planetoid being crashed into a planet in order to silence this
sparkle.
Yes, because the interior has been dyed. They've been working for years chemically treating the interior of this planetoid.
It's kind of filled with this powder, which just bursts out into this orange expanding cloud. It's orange, like daytime fireworks.
Blue, it's all over the place. It's this fantastic. Yes. It reminded me of Holi, the
yes, absolutely, yeah, the renegade rainbows. Were just this beautiful fan of destruction and
a new color. Diaspora of color scattering the galaxy with way more power and vibrance than any of the conformity.
And I love the epilogue, how they described it as a terrorist attack. They tried to spin it. So how they describe it as the incandescent insurgents,
which who is are just such a good name.
Absolutely going amazingly. They're trying to downplay it, of course,
but the cover-up no longer works because now,
it's out there. It's
and every year more and more of the galaxy is covered in this colorful powder.
The taboo has been broken, and no longer will it be silenced or covered up by the cloak of gold and white.
Very good. The honey and milk of the Commonwealth, and so that sort of ties in. Not very well, but we'll forgive James P. Hogan for that, with the title of Inheriting the Stars, where maybe it's more like colouring in the stars.
Stars have their own spectrum. You have the redshift, and the orange giants, which somehow get hand-waved out of existence. The fact that those stars exist.
Yeah, I know. You have this spacefaring civilization
or any rainbow. Where, it's not mentioned at all. The fact that there's what's that color then? It's we don't talk about that color.
No, we don't talk about that.
Rainbows are haram.
No, that's why their visors are so opaque. They just don't have windows on their spaceships.
Yeah, they're completely colored up. They're spectrum filtered for the
No, they're screens. That's right. I remember. It was described how their helmets are completely opaque, but on the interior it's a black and white screen, and they just have cameras on the helmets, which that explains that.
Absolutely. Great. That's
great work by James P. Hogan. Thank you very much. Now, how are we going to rate this book out of
7, 6? Yeah, I'm going to rate it blue out of violet.
It doesn't border. There's indigo. Indigo is in between them.
Well,
you have red, yellow,
green,
blue, indigo, violet. Red, orange,
yellow.
Thank you very
much. Green, blue,
I've been indoctrinated by the fashion police.
So we're going to rate it blue. Give it a blue out of rainbow.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
blue out of rainbow.
Well, a blue out of rainbow. Wow, I have to write the show notes for this, Thanks again to Chris for suggesting Inherit the Stars by James P. Hogan.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We really enjoyed reviewing this book.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that's in line with the kind of material that we review.
Definitely, unquestionably a book. And for the readers at home, you can find us at Cover My Asscast on Twitter, Facebook, or email, or the good old-fashioned web. And while we love being your dirty little secret, if you mention Cover My Ass to a friend, to an enemy, to a relative, something magical might happen, like a lucky penny falling from space.
As the saying goes, if you don't like something, tell us. If you like us, tell someone else.
That's the old saying. Do we? Hey, Kay. Are we going to have next week?
We have a book for next week. Yes, it is Chelsea Martin's Page Turner. Everything was fine until whatever.
It's my new favourite book, and that about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Come On My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
We made it! High five!